Joining us now to break down the future of the Republican Party is After Hours producer Kara McKinney. So Kara, you yourself are a young Republican voter, and I think that this issue of foreign policy really highlights the divide, or the transformation, I should say, of the Republican Party. So where do you think that voters really fall behind as far as support goes? The new kind of President Trump wing of the Republican Party, or the old, more war hawk wing of the Republican Party?
Well, thank you for having me on, Alex. And I guess I should respond to that with a question. Have you seen any neocon bring in the crowds that President Trump can? Yeah. Obviously not. So that's where the heart, that's where the Republican voters, that's where their heart is. It's with President Trump and his view and his take on foreign policy. A lot of us Republican voters, we almost feel lied to when we look back on the Bush 43 and the Obama years, where we were getting involved in every conflict overseas imaginable. And they were telling us this was for freedom and democracy and to liberate people, when in reality, it was for these Beltway swamp people to line their own pocketbooks and to get nice jobs at think tanks, and they sacrificed our men and women for these end goals.
No, I think you're exactly right to say that. And I think it's something that we can point the finger at both parties when it comes to that. I mean, you bring up that during the Bush administration, of course, we got involved in Iraq. Joe Biden voted for that war. It was furthered along, of course, during the Obama administration. And here we are, I mean, 20 years later, and we're still talking about the idea of pulling troops out of Afghanistan, out of Iraq. It's really an interesting place where we are right now. And when we talk about the Republican Party, it overlaps with the current idea of unrest that is taking place in the country right now. And we've talked about the idea that Republican leadership doesn't want to touch this issue for whatever reason right now. So what are people saying, young Republicans, I should say, saying about the Republican leadership during this moment?
Well, they're saying, where are you, first of all? Because unfortunately, it seems like Republican leadership, the establishment, I should say, that they're almost acting like Democrat light, or the generic store brand version of Democrats. You see, they kind of stand strong on some principles. A couple years go by, and now all of a sudden they're trying to capitalize. For example, police reform. A couple years ago, when the Black Lives Matter movement first broke out, they were strong. They stood with police. Now, a few years have gone by. They smell blood in the water. They're like, maybe we could siphon off a few votes. So let's try and do police reform. Let's try and give them Juneteenth. Let's try and make more and more concessions. And really, it's really only Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Tom Cotton. There's a few conservative lawmakers that are standing true to this nation and its founding. But other than that, there's not more. And President Trump, in a lot of ways, stands alone in this.
No, and you're not the only person that I've heard say this. I mean, in fact, in now viral clips, Tucker Carlson has been saying that for a long time. And in fact, a lot of people are saying maybe he needs to run for president in 2024. I saw several articles like that yesterday, but that does speak to the idea that the Republican Party doesn't know what comes after President Trump, because the rest of the leadership has been so weak up to this point. I mean, there's speculation that it could be Nikki Haley next, or maybe Vice President Mike Pence, but the idea is that a lot of young people, and especially a lot of just Republicans in general, don't know the direction of this party after President Trump, acknowledging the lack of voices right now. So it's 4th of July weekend, Independence Day, something where we celebrate our freedoms, and something that really kind of resonates with the time that we're living in right now. So before I let you go, what is your message to other Americans right now as they go into their weekend?
Well, it kind of ties into the previous question that you asked. Republicans, what I would like them to do is, for example, you probably saw in St. Louis, there were a group of Catholics who went and prayed the rosary, prayed some Gregorian chants almost in front of the statue. And that's what I would like to see Republicans, is taking that stand, going to these statues, going to these federal monuments that we have. We see President Trump making good on that. Instead of running away from controversy, he's running to it. He's going to Mount Rushmore today to do the 4th of July, do it big with fireworks and everything, because we should not be ashamed of this country. We shouldn't be made to feel that way either. This country is a beautiful, amazing, unique place. We didn't create slavery, unlike Senator Tim Kaine will have you believe. We didn't create it, we ended it. That's a beautiful thing that this country did. We saw in the Civil War, you saw white Americans fight their brothers, other white Americans, in order to free black Americans. That's a beautiful thing that we did, and we should be proud of that.
Yeah, and I think more people need to express exactly what you're saying, because right now the narrative is that this country is so terrible. And I think that people do need to counter that and understand the fact, of course, that it's not a perfect country, but the mere fact that we're talking about improving it and the mere fact that people do have the right to go to the streets, to voice their opposition to the government even. I mean, that is something that in most countries you would be killed for. And I think that when we recognize exactly what we have in this country, we can appreciate it for exactly what it is. I think that's very well said. Kara McKinney, it's always a pleasure having you on this show. You do great work here as always. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.